Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. It is exactly 9:58 a.m. We're on to our final interview for the morning. And what a way to end the show. We're talking about our time is now, our rights, our future. It's the 10th anniversary of the International Day of the Girl Child. To talk to us about this very important issue is social justice activist, Zulaikha Patel. Salaam alaikum to you, Zulaikha. Welcome to the program and lovely to have you on the show this morning.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a great pleasure to be on the show.
Okay, so we commemorate the 10th anniversary of the International Day of the Girl Child. I kind of cast my back many years ago to this initiative having so much of importance that even Oprah Winfrey got involved. She subsequently visited South Africa and opened up a school for the girl child. And we've had very many graduates out of that school who have gone on to do amazing things. So let's hear your story regarding the Day of the Girl Child.
So I got involved with doing some work around International Day of the Girl Child from about 2017, and that was just after I'd entered my activism. And for me, International Day of the Girl Child carries so much importance because it's centered around the upliftment and the empowerment of the girl child holistically, socially, economically, as well as social justice for girl children, right? That's how I've interpreted it because it centers around us looking at that day, how far we've come, and critically interrogating how much more work needs to still be done internationally for girl children to live in a socially just world, right? And from about 2017, every time the day would occur, I would be part of advocating that we've still got such a long way to go in terms of girl child rights, in terms of simple things like ensuring that girls can stay in school. Even in our own country, we haven't invested enough to ensure that girls are able to stay in school every single day because there's still the issue of girl children still not being able to access sanitary products in underprivileged, disadvantaged communities. So we've still got a long way to go. And every single year on the when the day occurs, I've always been part of advocating that we've got a long way to go, whilst we still must interrogate how far we've come and interrogate if some of the work we've done has been sustainable and is still creating 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 effectful change in communities, and also interrogate if there are things we need to change, because I think that internationally there's still a very long way to go, just not looking at South Africa only, but looking at the world at large, looking at the African continent, looking at regions in the Middle East, Asia, as well as all parts of the world. There's still a very long way to go in ensuring a socially just world for a girl child, a world where a girl child is not limited, and a girl child is able to understand that they're able to be anything they want to be and have the very same access, the very same equal access to opportunity, to education, such as the boy child, because there's still many regions today in 2022 where it's seen as a crime for a girl child to access an education. Many parts of the African continent and in regions of the Middle East. So we've got a very long way to go, and
Absolutely. Mm.
I think
You
that
talk about, yeah, you
it's
talk about
important that
the
we touch on that.
Absolutely. You talk about accessing education for girls and allowing them to learn in a very safe and protected environment. But we are faced with other issues as well. And I like your emphasis on education, but we need to look at girls with disabilities, how they are being marginalized. The other issue that we grapple with in a very big way here in South Africa is the schoolgirl pregnancies. That has to be addressed, and in a very big way. Is it about education? Is it about awareness? What is going on in that space? And I'd like you to respond to that. And then in the rest of Africa, another a very ancient practice which scars a girl mentally, physically, and emotionally for life is the female genital mutilation situation. So can you respond to those type of issues? We need to give voice to these three very important issues as far as the girl child is concerned: access to education, to prevent our schoolgirls falling pregnant in their droves, and to protect our girl children from female genital mutilation.
Mm. I'm so glad that we've also brought up those issues, because those are a terrible cancer to South Africa. I mean, you look at the issue of in school teenage pregnancies. It's very closely tied to gender-based violence in this country, and also rape in the country. And particularly, I'm going to touch on statutory rape, because I think that we've also been making the mistake of focusing on the girl child instead, and instead of analyzing that there was another party involved. And many of the times in our country, and in a lot of communities, even in the Gauteng province, it is that the girl child is involved with someone much older than them, and that is statutory rape. And we don't focus on actually advocating against this. I've noticed that there's quite a lot of silence around the issue of girl children being molested by men much older than them when they're underage. And for as long as we don't also use that as a part of assessing the problem in the country, we're not really going to move forward with this problem, because that is the case most of the time, is that they're involved with someone much older than them whilst they are underage. And it's very closely tied to the issues that we face in the country with gender-based violence, and the issues that we face in the country also with economic issues as well. Because when you assess what started the involvement between someone who is underage and someone who is much older, there comes in an issue also of being taken advantage of, being offered being offered a better life, and being offered certain things that relate back to the economic issue. So I think that
So
as
what you're saying, Zulaikha, what you're saying, and we know that it's a big problem in our country, is the entrapment of underage girls by the sugar daddies. That's a huge thing in South Africa, is it not?
Yes, yes. And I think that we've also been struggling to address this issue, because it's not just an issue that's only affecting girls in school. It's also affecting girls in university. And I think that many of the times, as controversial as this may sound, the reason why we tend to avoid seriously tackling this issue, because it's causing a cancer in our society, is because that a lot of the men at times who tend to have involvement in this issue are men who are in power, who are public figures, who are known. And then their position in society allows them the privilege to not be singled out as the causes of this problem. So I believe that that's one of the biggest issues that we've got relating to that societal issue that we're currently facing in this country. And the statistics keep getting worse. And there's one thing that I just also want to highlight, that when we touch on the issue of children having children in school, girl children having children, we can't say that the statistic is decreasing, yet the statistic of illegal abortions is increasing. That's not us tackling the issue. We're creating another issue whilst tackling it. So I think that in terms of that issue, there's a problem that we've missed, and the problem that we've missed for me is touching on the issue of the the entanglement and being taken advantage of, these girl children being taken advantage of by older men whilst they are underage. And for as long as I think that we're not going to address that issue, and the seriousness of this issue being tied to economic issues and also being tied to gender-based violence in the country, I don't think we're going to move forward. And when you touch on another issue that we're currently facing in the continent, which is the issue of genital mutilation. I believe that it's necessary that work is done on the ground, because that pertains to cultural practices that have been upheld for decades, right? Whereby now you need to actually go and do the groundwork within communities to actually create an awareness around the communities that uphold these traditions, that this causes a serious mental and health risk for girl children, because communities in essence are tied and held up by by traditions and cultural practices, and we have to work with the communities in order to eradicate this issue, because it's upheld as a cultural practice within communities. So it requires a lot of groundwork, and engaging with communities, and the necessary education around reproductive health, because it's also seen as a stigma to educate children around their own body and autonomy. So there needs to be more education around that, because through education, then they would understand. Then communities would shift to understand safety around their own autonomy, and understand how unsafe these practices are, and how much of a health risk they cause for girl
Okay.
children.
All right, Zulaikha, we're going to have to wrap up in a minute or two, but the all important question is: it's fine to commemorate a day, one day in the year, for the rights of the girl child, for her to be protected against GBV, because everything we're talking about, as you rightly say, is directly linked to gender-based violence. You talk education. What is the starting block? What do we use as our starting block? Because the situation of all three issues that we've touched on seems to be getting progressively worse. So you and I are here talking about it one day of the year, but more needs to happen. And what is that more?
Well, quite recently, I sat in a seminar where they discussed the actual budget that it would require, the actual budget required to ensure that girls can stay in school. Because I think that it's so important that we don't just advocate for girls to access education, but they need to be able to stay in school and not skip days from school. And I was sitting in the seminar, and I was quite shocked to find out that um you don't even need close to 1 million. It's actually under that, to ensure that free sanitary products can be provided for girl children across the country in public schools, to be able to stay in school. And so I think that there needs to be a harder push on government, because this money is there. I think that we can clearly see that there's a lot of budget that sometimes is misused within our government, which could be directed to an issue that is very important, which is ensuring girl children stay in school. So there needs to be a harder push on government to redirect the budget to ensure that across all schools, girls can have sanitary products and be able to stay in school.
All right, Zulaikha, I am aware of the fact in the many years that I've been, on radio, that there are a lot of NGOs and NPOs. They do supply sanitary products to girls in rural schools and all around the country. I think we need to get out a much stronger message regarding, child pregnancies and genital mutilation. But I leave that in your capable hands. You are a social justice activist, and I will catch up with you in a couple of weeks' time to hear how you've gotten the ball rolling on these issues. Thank you indeed for being with us on the show this morning. Go well, and assalamu alaikum to you.
Thank you very much,
That brings us to the end of the show, 13 after 10. A very big thank you to the production team. All I can say to you is thank you for your company. I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed being here with you. Till tomorrow morning at the same time. As always, take care on the roads. And it is Assalamu alaikum and Khudafiz from me, Julie Ali.